Did you know that you can build amazing looking components in Divi 5 using the design system? Let me show you how. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and create a group to start with. And in this group, we're going to add an image, a title. So I'm going to click here on this plus button, and we're also going to add some description text. So I'm going to click here on this plus button and search for my text module. And we're also going to add some buttons. Okay. So below this text module, I'm going to click on this plus button and add a group. And then in this group, we're going to add two buttons. So there we go. The first button. And then I'm going to duplicate this button here. And now I want this button side by side. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to click here on the group settings, go to design, layout, and then we're going to make sure that this is horizontal. But not only that, we also want this aligned to the right, just like that. Fantastic. So now let's go in and start customizing this further. So I'm going to go into this image here and select an image. So I'm going to go to content, image, and then I'm going to choose an image here, and I'm going to go with, which one should I go with? All right, so let's go with this one right here. Okay, I'm going to say upload image. So now we have our image. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into this group settings. Now, this is where the design system comes in now. Very, very exciting, very, very powerful. So we want to add some border around this. So I'm going to go into design, and then we're going to go into spacing. So what we need here is padding, but we're going to try padding small, but I know I can't see the padding around this item because I haven't added a color. So I'm going to come over here to content. We're going to go to the background and then click on this plus button. Again, this here, all these colors here are generated using the what? The design system. So it's very easy for me to choose my gray 50. And you can see here perfectly that it is looking great. The next thing I'm going to do now is to go back to the design, and I'm going to go to border. Okay. So the border that I'm going to add is going to be on the actual design itself. So I'm going to go with border radius medium. Okay. And now it's time for the image. So for the image, since the medium is on the outside, I'm going to go with small on the inside. So I'm going to go to border, radius, small. Okay. Now, do you see that? So far, so good. The challenge now that we have is our spacing here is off. But before we go to the spacing, I want to come over here to my buttons. So I'm going to go to the first one. I'm going to come over to the top. Again, this is from our design system. Okay. So I'm going to choose my primary small, do the same over here, click on the buttons, and I'm going to say primary light. Actually, I need primary small light. So let's get rid of this, and there we go. So now I have the small button and also the other one. But do you see that the gaps between those two buttons don't work? Now, this is where the design system comes in. So I'm now going to go into my group settings, and in this group, you can see we have our spacing here. So I want to go in and say extra small. Do you see that? If that's a bit too much, perhaps we can go in and say gap small. I think that looks much, much better. Okay. So in this actual design here, our spacing is off. I mean, you see the spacing between items here is not looking good at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into group, which is the main group itself. And then I'm now going to change this to gap 0. And now this takes away all the spacing. I can individually now go in and choose the spacing that I want according to the design system. So I'm going to start here with the title. I'm going to go in, and I want the padding to the top. I mean, margin to the top, slightly big. So let's just close this item here. We're going to go to, let's go to spacing. So we're going to look for margin top. So I'm going to scroll all the way down here. Right. So margin top, I'm going to start with small. So this is where you need to really keep a close eye on this and see if these sizes that I'm adding here actually make sense. So this small here is a bit too small. So I'm going to go with medium. Okay. So I'm going to say padding top, medium. I keep saying padding top. It's supposed to be margin top, medium. Okay. So here we go. Margin top, medium. There we go. And then for the paragraph here, I'm going to say margin top small. So I'm going to scroll down to spacing, and then we're going to say margin top small. There we go. And then for the buttons here, the space between the buttons and the paragraph text, again, I'm going to go to spacing, margin top small. Okay, so I think my design now is perfect. The next thing I need to do is to adjust my headings. So I know by default this comes in as a heading 1. So let's go ahead and fix that. So I'm going to go to heading text, and I'm going to change this from heading 1 to heading 3. And then I'm going to assign my responsive text, heading 3. Look at that. Now for the paragraph text, I'm going to come in here. I'm also going to go to text, and then I'm going to choose body text small. Now, do you notice that everything that I'm adding here is coming from my design system? So with this now, of course, you can decide, you know what, maybe the padding around this item is a bit too small. I want it bigger. You can always come over here like that. You go to your padding small, get rid of that, and then you can go in and say padding large. Now, do you see that? Now it's looking much, much bigger, okay? But we're not done yet. We want to go in further and add a hover on color on this particular item. So let's go ahead and fix that. So I'm going to select it first, come over here, and then I'm going to go to hover, okay? Right, so now that I have hover selected, I'm now going to go to content. We're going to go to background, and this is where we're going to choose our color. So by clicking in here, I've got access to all these colors. So I can choose now, let's say primary 100. Okay. So this now is going to act as my hover. Now, sometimes it may need a bit of an adjustment, okay, because it's a bit too much. So if you go into this primary 100 here, there's a slider for the lightness. If you go over to the right, so let's go 20%, or it can even be dark like that. But of course, we want it over here. Let's go perhaps maybe, I would say maybe even 16% is fine. So what we're going to do now is to get out of the hover mode, and then I'm going to now do a quick preview. Okay, so now we have our component here done. If I hover over it, you can see there the color is changing, and it looks perfect because it has our design system applied to it. So now if I inspect, and this is the most important part, okay, because all these things are supposed to look great when you design it. So now I'm going to go in, make this smaller. Now I want you to keep a look at the buttons, look at the padding, look at the title text, just look at everything. As I'm getting smaller and smaller, everything is very proportional, it's maintaining, and it is looking great. You see? Look at that. So this is why you need the Krafter design system. All the components you're going to build are all going to look amazing on all devices. So I want to show you something even more exciting here. Okay. So let's say we save this. Let's go back to Divi. Let's say we save this. All right. We're going to come over here, click these three little dots, and then I'm going to save to library. Okay. So I want to call this card A. Okay, and then category here, I'm going to call this category cards. Okay, the tag is going to be card, and then save to library. Okay, great. So let's get rid of this now. Now we're starting this brand new design. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to add a single column. Okay, and then in this column, I'm going to go to add from library, and we have our card A. I'm going to select that, and then I'm going to add this. Okay, now we can see it comes in very, very massive. So what I'm going to do here is duplicate it a few times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I've done it 4 times. You can see it here. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is to come over here into the main row, and then over here in the elements, I'm going to go into the column, and then over here on the top, I'm going to say auto grid. Do you see that? This is getting exciting now. So with auto grid, right, I am able to align all these properly, and this is going to adjust based on my screen size. So with auto grid now, If I want to, I can get rid of these two. Yep. And if I want to add, that's fine. And then this actual section here, I mean, the actual row, I can go in and then say to this row, you know what? This needs to be a wide content row. Boom. Do you see that? Now it's a wide content row. Or you just want this to be a normal content row. See, everything here is based on the design system. So at this stage now, you can go in, adjust that. So perhaps you can say, okay, when there's quite a few of these, the spacing doesn't look right in the actual design. So let's go in and fix the padding. Okay, instead of large, let's just go back in and say, you know what, let's go for padding medium. Okay, so now we can see the card looks much better. Or you can even go to the first setting that we did and say, oh, you know what, let's do a padding small. Okay, and I actually think that this small actually looks great. So I'm going to get rid of everything here. Okay, and then we duplicate this one. And you notice that everything is coming in place and it's all working great because we have auto grid. Okay, so what we're going to do next now is to adjust the gap between these items here. So I am now going to go into my columns. Okay, and oops. So to adjust my gaps, I'm just going to go back into my row because I need to be in my column. So I'm going to come over here, content, elements, go into the column, and then go to design. And then in the layout now is where I can choose my spacing. You see that? Now I've got gap small. That's the gap between these items here. Okay, and I can even go with gap medium, which I think works even better. So I'm going to go with gap medium, and that is how I've actually gone in and used my design system to create these components. So I can actually save these in my library and use them over and over again. Look at that. When I hover over it, it's actually working. It's brilliant. So I can take this a step further now and make this a card. And this card is going to work as a loop. So this is how you can start thinking about working with Divi in an advanced way. So back over here, my section here also needs some breathing space. I'm going to go in here and then I'm going to choose large. Okay, so now we've got our spacing. Everything is now responsive and everything now looks great. So this is how you want to be using the design system. And as you can see, in a very short space of time, I was able to go in and create a card which is mobile responsive, which has the right spacing between all the elements, and basically it's pleasing to the eye. Now, this design system goes for $77. The price is going to go up very soon because I'm going to have a lot of these components in the design system. So the price is probably going to go up to about $127 or maybe $147, depending on how many components are there. But the idea is to make the designing of websites super easy. You'll be able to just go into a blank website, add all the components you need. Everything's going to be spaced out correctly and properly, and pretty much no need to worry. So this is really, really powerful. And also, I'm going to add a link to my Divi 5 mastery course. This is a course that teaches you how to design using Divi 5. This is going to really put you on top of a lot of designers because I'll have covered a lot just to help you understand how Divi works. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one. Take care.